Welcome back to the Dr. Rich channel. Today, I want to talk about a very hot topic, the vaccine. You know which one. Moderna, Pfizer, even J&J getting in on the action. So a lot of people are worried that there's some correlation between the vaccine and sterilization or infertility in women. And should they be worried about that? Stay tuned to find out. So it is a very personal choice, but it's a personal choice that you should make with your healthcare professional, not with some rando you met on the internet. So there have been rumors floating around for almost a year now regarding the possible potential connection between the COVID vaccine and infertility in women. So there have been a number of experts in the fields of virology, immunology, and reproductive endocrinology that have already done videos specifically on this topic. And we'll include the link to their videos below. So as a women's health expert, I want to share my expertise. Unfortunately, false information or fake news spreads 6 times faster than real news. So we actually have to provide and take every opportunity to use our platform to contradict false information that's out there. And we'll go over all the data, we'll stick to the facts, and we'll tell you exactly what you need to know about the vaccine and fertility. And make sure to stick around to the end so you can find out what the WHO and the American College of OBGYN actually recommend right now regarding the vaccine and pregnancy. Many months ago, there was an online publication called Health and Money News that published an article that was entitled Head of Pfizer Research, COVID vaccine is female sterilization. So I'll give it up to my audience. You have 3 seconds to answer. Is this news or fake news? If you guessed fake news, you're right. So how did this notion actually come about? Well, there was a researcher in respiratory medicine and research for Pfizer that hasn't worked for Pfizer in 9 years. And he submitted a letter to the European version of the Food and Drug Administration. And in that letter, he claimed that there was a similarity in the amino acid sequence for the COVID spike protein to a pregnancy protein called syncytin 1. So we always want to track all possible adverse events that can come from any new medication or vaccine in this example. But to say that small sequence equates to your immune response from the COVID vaccine resulting in your body developing an immune response against a placenta in a pregnant woman, to say that's a reach is to say that I play for the Yankees.
Do you play for the Yankees?
I do not. So just imagine there is a 923 amino acid sequence in the COVID spike protein and a 350 amino acid sequence in syncytin 1. In all of those numbers, 4 out of 5 in a row were the same amino acid. So that's kind of like saying that I guessed one number right on my Powerball card, so I'm going to win the next 4 Powerballs. That's a bit of a reach. So that being said, what does the evidence show? Well, if there were a correlation, then we should see that there's an effect on a woman's ability to get pregnant after having the vaccine. So in the preclinical trials for Pfizer and Moderna, there were no difference in the number of women who got pregnant in the trial who had the vaccine and who had placebo. And we should have seen a reduction in the number of pregnancies if infertility was caused by the vaccine. And then we can also look at birth rates. So there have been 100 million COVID infections. So the year prior, the birth rate was actually slightly lower than the year after COVID came about. So in as much as you get the same or similar immune response from the mRNA vaccine that you would get from natural infection, we would have expected to see a reduction in birth rate, and that didn't happen. So for the purposes of our video today, I want to kind of separate out the effect of vaccine and how that affects fertility, and then also talk about the actual COVID infection and how that affects fertility. So does the vaccine affect fertility? So female fertility, no evidence. Male fertility, no evidence. There's been a study that showed all of the major parameters in an analysis of the man's semen after the vaccine are normal. So no change in count, motility or movement, morphology or shape. All of those parameters are unaffected by the vaccine. With regard to female fertility, there's no decrease in egg production. There's no effect on the embryo, and there's no effect on implantation in IVF studies that have been done in women who have received the vaccine. What about COVID, vaccination, and pregnancy? So at the time of this video, there have been 6.2 billion vaccinations given and tens of thousands of vaccinations given during pregnancy. And what we've seen is the COVID vaccination confers immunity to the mother, protection against the virus, and that immunity is actually conferred to the newborn, protecting the newborn from COVID infection. So when should you get the vaccine? You should get it as soon as it's available. You should get it prior to pregnancy, or if you become pregnant, you should get it during pregnancy. There are no reported adverse events from women receiving the vaccine during pregnancy, and we know that the COVID infection causes severe disease and death in pregnant women. So the World Health Organization, the American College of OBGYN, and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine all support that there is no contraindication for receiving the vaccine while pregnant. Which is to say, if you're pregnant, you should get the vaccine, and we will drop the link to that article in the description below. So that's what we know about the COVID vaccine. No contraindication in pregnancy, does not affect male fertility or sperm counts, does not affect female fertility. Now let's talk about the COVID infection. So the COVID infection actually does cause decreased sperm counts in men. And as we mentioned, it causes severe infection and death in pregnant women. What's important to note is the COVID infection does not decrease the placenta's ability to implant and therefore cause more first trimester miscarriages. So neither the infection itself nor the vaccine have any demonstrable effect on female fertility. So those are the facts. So what do we know about long-term effects of the COVID vaccine? What do we know about long-term effects of the infection itself? Well, there's not a lot of data on long-term usage, but what we see after giving 6 billion vaccinations is that it is extremely safe. What we've seen with the COVID vaccine is in certain populations, it's extremely dangerous. Somewhere on the order of you're 100,000 times more likely to suffer severe illness and death from the infection as you are from getting a vaccine from the infection that it is designed to protect you against. So if you had the choice to get run over by a bus or a tricycle, I'd probably pick the tricycle. There could be some risk, but chances are you're going to do way better than the other scenario. Now, I think one thing that should be mentioned is this idea of natural immunity. If you've had the infection, what additional benefit do you get from getting the vaccine? Well, the preliminary data, particularly out of Israel, shows that there is additional benefit from getting the vaccine on top of natural infection, but we shouldn't be pretending that there isn't a tremendous amount of benefit, maybe even more benefit from natural infection compared to the vaccine alone. And if you've had both infection and vaccine, you're kind of super protected or super immune from the virus. So ultimately, in most circumstances, you're going to be better off protecting yourself with a vaccine. Very safe, very few adverse side effects compared to a disease that can be very dangerous. So in the US, we've received 400 million vaccinations for a population of 380 million, which means with 2 doses that we have about 55% of our population that's been fully vaccinated. We shouldn't completely get caught up with numbers on a spreadsheet, meaning that there are plenty of people that didn't get vaccinated that have had natural immunity from actually getting an infection, and there's benefit to that. Please help us in our mission to provide accurate, up-to-date women's health information and smash the subscribe button.